The horror genre is huge, spanning hundreds of diverse subgenres, from your standard monster movies and slashers to the downright bizarre. For over a century, horror movies have become a reflection of the fears of our society and culture, and it has become a genre so big and popular that it would be hard to cover everything around it. But let's start from the beginning. The first film to be considered a horror film was The Haunted Castle by George Méliès in 1896. Méliès did something that couldn't be done before. He used trick photography, double exposure, and early special effects to bring horror to life. This style continued to be used for amusement rather than anything else. But horror starts to move from comedies to more serious movies. Then this brings up the question, when does horror become horror as we know it today? Although it is not exactly what we see today, it would be a disgrace to not talk about Robert Wiene's 1920 masterpiece, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. A German expressionist film, a huge one might I add, was an immediate influence on German cinema at the time, most notably for films like M, Nosferatu, and Metropolis. Thematically and tonally, it's probably one of the biggest influences on the horror genre. It can be seen as the first psychological horror film. The influence of Caligari on early horror can be seen immediately in films like Nosferatu and Frankenstein. It's later echoed in films of Tim Burton and Ridley Scott. The film's final twist, where Francis is revealed to be a madman in an insane asylum, is reflected in a psychoanalysis scene in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. It can also be used to inspire later psychological movies like The Shining, when Jack Torrance has actually been at the Overlook Hotel since the beginning many years ago.
Here's Johnny!
Yes, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari was and is considered a horror film. But is it truly that scary? It most definitely was for that time, considering nothing had been done to that level before. But it got me thinking, what makes a horror movie really scary? This can be answered by looking at the first horror movie whose real intention was not to entertain, but to absolutely terrify its audience. That is F.W. Murnau's 1922 horror masterpiece, Nosferatu. F.W. Murnau was inspired by the success of Dr. Caligari and wanted to make his own film in the genre of German horror. The story he wanted to tell was Bram Stoker's Dracula, but unfortunately, he found himself unable to secure the rights to the story. That didn't stop him, though. He started production on his own vampire movie, based on the novel in 1921. In an attempt to dodge copyright laws, he changed the name of the film to Nosferatu. He moved the story from London to Germany, and he replaced Count Dracula with Count Orlok. But Murnau did not just change these parts of the story. He changed the main character from what was supposed to be a sex icon to a creepy, disturbing-looking beast. What makes a scary movie scary? The reason Nosferatu worked so well is because it knew how to scare people, and that was by tapping into their fears. I know that seems obvious, but films today have trouble doing that. Nosferatu picked apart what people were scared of and incorporated it into the film, and a lot of things done then have continued to be done today. They use suspense, darkness, the unknown, you can run but you can't hide, and so much more. Here are some examples of some things that have stuck around today and were invented during Nosferatu. Count Orlok is seen rising from a coffin, which is terrifying enough without having to put music behind it. But where else have we seen this later on? Another fear people have is just the idea that someone is coming after them and there is no place to go, sort of feeling trapped and claustrophobic. We not only have seen this done here, but many times after that. Or how about when you feel like someone is watching you? This is a classic, but not at that time. They really were the first to show it.
There was not a family in our driveway. Huh. Who is that?
The idea that someone is chasing us and we can't get away no matter what we do is frightening. But again, they knew to show it during the film and why we continue to see it and feel it today. It was sort of the first, you can run, but you can't hide.
Back up.
Here I come, Tyler. Here I come.
Horror. It's a genre that has been around for over a century. While people may not like classic films like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and Nosferatu, we need to thank them for giving us the horror films that we see today and showing us what truly is scary.